The Minister of Culture of Peru, Leslie Urteaga, warned that she could order the closure of Machu Picchu in the face of protests against privatization. In France, the siege of Paris is underway as farmers block key highways around the capital city for the second day in a row. And in Lebanon, citizens demonstrated in front of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees against the decision of several countries to suspend funding to the agency. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, the Minister of Culture, Leslie Urteaga, warned that she could order the closure of Machu Picchu in the face of protests against the privatization. After 4 days of protests against the handover of the iconic Inca site to a private company, the executive refuses to dialogue and anticipates more extreme measures. The minister demands that the strike and the seizure of the train tracks cease in order to sit down to dialogue. However, the social collectives and citizens who maintain the protest assured that the times they have yielded to the proposals of the executive, they ended up being decisive. The head of culture assured in an interview to the national television that they will evaluate the request for the closure of the citadel. The Minister of Culture added that the government will only engage in dialogue if the strike is lifted, which is causing millions of dollars in losses.
Today we are going to have another meeting as executive in the group we have for the Machu Picchu issue, and we will also evaluate the requests made by this group. Among them is to close the cultural center, and that would be very painful for everyone. But well, we will evaluate it, and we will also consider, as I said, the proposal of the company, of the supplier, and we will have to see how that goes, because what I think we all want is modernization, is work. It's economic recovery, especially for our beloved Machu Picchu.
And we go now to Argentina, where the national government suffered a new judicial setback regarding its emergency decree, as it is appealed against the provisional suspension of the labor chapter in favor of the aviation personnel was rejected. The judges Mario Fera and Hector Guisado dismissed the appeal of the ruling party, ratifying the jurisdiction of the labor courts in the dispute, which the government had tried to refute. In this sense, the judges allude to similar cases presented by Argentina's main workers' unions, CGT and CTA, already taken by the same courts. Milei's administration insists on its right and need to rule by decree, claiming that to have the necessary popular support after his electoral victory in November, despite criticisms received by constitutionalists and the multiple judicial setbacks it has faced in the past weeks. In El Salvador, civil organizations, citizens and workers of temporary electoral bodies denounced after the last electoral simulation that technical and logistical problems persist. This second simulation was scheduled to take place in 95% of the voting centers, but in 2 of them it could not be carried out. Other problems persisted related to the transmission of data and scanning of documents. The president of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, Dora Martinez, acknowledged logistical failures, assuring that many of them were related to the transfer of members of the center. As for the technical ones, the experts of the electoral body related it to the connectivity capacity.
The router needs to be connected to the computer, but that will be solved. Compared to the previous simulation, I feel that the internet has improved, because in the previous drill it failed us. But still, they solved the scanner failure, because the scanner worked last time, but the scan did not show in the computer, so this time everything worked fine.
The President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, informed on Monday at the First Council of Ministers of 2024 about the national tours and the processes that will accompany the implementation of the new economic measures. The head of state gave an account of the activities that will be developed for the implementation of the government's projections to correct distortions and boost the economy. With this objective in mind, he addressed the work priorities for this year, making a special emphasis on the need need for the measures designed to have spaces to encourage popular participation, for which reasons a process of a political debate will be carried out throughout the country.
First, we have to convince of why we are applying these measures and why they are necessary. They are necessary measures that cannot be postponed. They correct deep distortion and structural deviations that hinder the development of the economy. They are measures oriented to the benefit of the people. Comrade, if we grow in the economy, if we boost the economy, if we depend less on imports, if we export more, if we increase the number of visitors that the country needs, who is that for? It is for the population. It is oriented to the population. If we are looking to maintain greater amplitude and consolidate the sustainability of the social conquest, for whom is that for? That is for the people.
President Miguel Díaz-Canel categorically rejected any insinuation that the measures implemented to boost the economy in 2024 are neoliberal.
Tell me which neoliberal package in the world begins by increasing the income of workers in two sectors of society, health and education. Therefore, this is not a neoliberal package. We have applied of all the measures. We have applied one. Who it is harmed? Nobody. It is a recognition to the sectors that have the most important functions in society, which is to guarantee life, health, and education to a nation.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The siege of Paris is underway as French farmers blocked key highways around the capital city for the second day in a row on Tuesday. The farmers threatened to block the major wholesale markets of Rungis, depending on the announcement of new measures promised by the government. The Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, is expected to deliver further announcements in an attempt to calm the anger of farmers in Europe's third largest agricultural power and the sixth largest in the world. Demonstrators began on Monday afternoon a siege of the capital for an unlimited duration after 11 days of protests. The sector is calling for measures to address falling incomes, low pensions, inflation caused by environmental standards, and foreign competition. The farmers' protest in France derived from a number of national and regional reasons. Some of their concerns, like competition from cheaper inputs and environmental rules, are shared by producers in the rest of the European Union, while other issues such as food price negotiations are more specific to France. Farmers argue that a push by the government and retailers to bring down food inflation has left many producers unable to cover high costs for energy, fertilizers, and transport. Moreover, they also reject a government plan to phase out a tax break for farmers on diesel fuel as part of a wider energy transition policy. Another contentious point is the possible agreement between the European Union and the Mercosur, which European farmers argue would lead to unfair competition. In this context, European Commission spokesman stated the deal on the trade agreement is not sealed, but negotiations continue.
What I can say is that at present the Commission's analysis is that the conditions for the concluding negotiations with Mercosur are not quite there.
Local media in Spain highlighted that the amnesty law was not approved on Tuesday in the Spanish Congress after the Together for Catalonia party voted against it after failing to reach an agreement with the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party on how to include terrorism crimes in the text. In total, the law promoted by the president of the Spanish government, Pedro Sánchez, received 171 votes in favor and 179 against and 0 abstentions. In this way, the government announced the return of the law to the Justice Commission, and on the other hand, the Spanish Congress will continue negotiating the draft bill of amnesty to the Catalan independentists. In this sense, the party Together for Catalonia considers that the law, as it is written, does not cover all those accused in the sovereignty process. Russia has opened the first meeting of BRICS Sherpas and South Sherpas during its presidency of the alliance in 2024. Representatives of 5 new members, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, will also take part in the events, which is scheduled for January 30th, February 1st in Moscow. The summit takes place while Russian, Chinese, Brazilian, Indian and South African diplomats attend as representatives of the bloc's founding members. The BRICS, made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, together account for around 40% of the world's population and a quarter of global gross domestic product. During the inauguration of the first BRICS in 2024, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov reaffirms Moscow's commitment to preserving unity in diversity.
I would like to reaffirm the commitment of Russia to preserve the BRICS spirit, ensure continuity and coherence of our cooperation. We believe that the joint efforts of BRICS countries, and all of us, I believe, share this, in order to advance the BRICS program for this year, will also contribute greatly to the promotion of the interests of the world majority.
Russian emergency services reported on Tuesday that data from the black boxes of the Il-76 plane shot down by the Ukrainian armed forces in the Russian region of Belgorod confirmed an external hit as the cause. According to the information, the flight recorders were in the back of the plane and is in the process of investigation. On January 24th, the armed forces of Ukraine shot down a Russian Il-76 military transport plane over the Belgorod region, which was carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners for exchange, plus a 6-member crew and 3 escorts. Prior to the crash, the Russian ministry recorded the launch of 2 anti-craft missiles from the territory of the Kharkov region. The defense ministry stressed that Kyiv knew about the transport of Ukrainian servicemen for the exchange to be held later on the border between the Belgorod and Sumy regions. The Kremlin called the murder a monstrous act. In Sri Lanka, police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse an opposition march in Colombo on Tuesday, protesting against the island's nation's economic difficulties, which are the worst in its history. The demonstrators belonging to the main opposition United People's Power Party accused President Ranil Wickremesinghe's administration of imposing an excessive burden on the population by increasing taxes, electricity and fuel, which has led to a sharp rise in the cost of living. Police used tear gas and water on 2 occasions to disperse protesters as they attempted to overstep areas allowed for protest. Sri Lanka is facing the worst economic crisis in its history and is under a 4-year bailout program for the International Monetary Fund.
Because the government is not concerned about the sufferings of the people. People are unable to have their meals. They have no money to pay the electricity bills. They have no money to buy the necessary equipment for their children to go to school. So the whole country is suffering. But government seems to not understand the real situation in the country. So we expect the people to rise. The next election, the election year has already come. Next year, this year, people must think differently and take the correct decisions.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news, coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Tuesday, authorities in Palestine confirmed that the attacks launched since October 7th by the Israeli occupation army in Gaza have left a total of 26,792 Palestinians dead. In this way, the Health Ministry's daily report also notified that the number of injuries is close to 66,000, while on the other hand, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the World Health Organization and the Palestinian government asserted that due to the Israeli attacks, 360,000 residential buildings have been destroyed or damaged, along with 378 schools. Authorities also reported that 14 of the 35 hospitals are partially functioning. It should be noted that according to official data, 15 people died every hour in Gaza and 6 of them are children. And we continue in Palestine, where the Ministry of Health on Tuesday denounced that Israel continues to assault health centers after a brigade of the occupation army assaulted the emergency department of a hospital and executed 3 patients while they were sleeping. In this regard, the health authorities added they recorded the assault through security cameras, which shows Israeli soldiers disguised as Palestinian medical personnel inside the facilities of the Ibn Sina hospital in Jenin. In turn, the Tel Aviv forces denied the accusations and claimed that the men were members of a Hamas terrorist cell. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health appealed again to the United Nations General Assembly, international institutions and human rights bodies to stop the Zionist attacks on health services. Qatar, Egypt and the United States made a truce proposal for Israel and Hamas. The draft was accepted by Israel. However, Hamas is still evaluating it since they want a total ceasefire, but also the withdrawal of Israeli troops from their land. Our teleSUR correspondent Noor Harasan with the details.
A new truce proposal brokered by Egypt, Qatar and the United States. Israel has accepted the draft and now it is the turn of Hamas. Hamas is reviewing the ceasefire plan. However, Ismail Haniya, who is the head of the political bureau in Qatar of Hamas in Qatar, he said that they want a complete ceasefire. They want Israel to stop its war. Hamas want a complete withdrawal for the Israeli troops from the coastal enclave from Gaza. And they are still reviewing this plan, but if these conditions were not included in the plan, it is not likely that Hamas will accept any of these draft plans of a ceasefire. At the same time, Hamas, from their side, they condemned the assassination of 3 young women inside the Ibn Sina hospital in Jenin. What happened was very catastrophic, actually. The fact that a group of armed, disguised Israeli military troops entered the hospital disguising as a woman, old men, and then killed 3 young Palestinian fighters, resistance fighters. One of them belonged to the Al-Qassam brigades, the other one belonged to the battalions, and the third one is also a resistance fighters. This is something that Hamas said that will not go unanswered, and this is a very strong statement from Hamas. People do feel that Hamas will intensify its attacks not only here in Gaza but also in the West Bank following this Israeli attack. Noor Harasan, teleSUR, Gaza.
A spokesman for the World Health Organization said Tuesday that the food and water situation in Gaza is extremely bad, with regular food supplies being cut for more than 100 days.
Well, the food and water situation is extremely bad. Food has been cut off. Regular food supply has been cut off Gaza since more than 100 days. The population is really at the border of famine, as was discussed multiple times already, and it's definitely not getting better. It's getting worse by the day. We had a convoy just this morning trying to reach Al-Nasser hospital with patients, healthcare staff, everybody there needing food, but the very needy population already before basically took the the supplies, as we can call it. This was a self-distribution of supplies, which only shows how dire the needs are.
On Tuesday, several international organizations announced their rejection to the decision of some donor countries to suspend aid to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees, known as UNRWA. In this context, more than 20 organizations, including Save the Children and the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief, issued a joint statement of support for the United Nations program, warning that the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza will increase with this measure. In this sense, these organizations also warned that the agency is the largest humanitarian aid agency in Gaza and will not be replaced by other agencies that are deployed in Palestine. In this sense, they also stated that it is shameful that donor countries such as the United States, Germany, Switzerland, Canada, and the United Kingdom suspended funds in the inhuman conditions that the Gaza people are living in. In Lebanon, dozens of people demonstrated Tuesday in front of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees in Beirut against the decision of several countries to suspend funding to the agency after Israel accused some staff of involvement in the October 7th Hamas Al-Aqsa food operation. At least 12 key donors countries will suspend funding to that agency following Israel's accusations. For its part, the United Nations Agency fired several staff and promised a thorough investigation into the allegations. The agency is responsible for providing humanitarian aid and protection to Palestinian refugees in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Lebanon hosts some 250,000 Palestinian refugees. The World Health Organization warned that the funding dispute was distracting attention from the humanitarian disaster in the Palestinian territory. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.